Devin Carter stood at the edge of the classroom, his 12-year-old frame trying to melt into the wall. It was his third week at Westlake Middle School, and he had already become the favorite target of Mr. Holloway, the music teacher whose outdated methods were only tolerated because of his long time at the school. "Mr. Carter," Holloway's voice had an edge that made the other students tense up. "Since you find my lesson so boring that you're staring out the window, perhaps you'd like to show us your musical knowledge?" Devin's eyes widened. He hadn't been daydreaming about music. He'd been watching a spacecraft from the new human alien embassy landing on the pad visible from the classroom window. Ever since aliens made contact 5 years ago, the sight of their ships still amazed him. "No, sir," Devin said quietly. "I was just not paying attention." Holloway cut him off. He pointed to the instrument storage room. "Go get a violin. Show the class what you can do with it." Several students laughed. Everyone knew Devin was from the poorer district that had only recently been included in Westlake's zone. His family couldn't afford the private music lessons most students here had taken since they were very young. Ms. Rivera, the teacher's aide, frowned from her desk, but stayed silent. She was new and still learning how things worked at Westlake. Devin slowly walked to the storage room, his heart beating fast. He had never held a violin in his life. This was clearly meant to embarrass him. He picked an instrument that looked less expensive than the others, carefully lifting it from its case. When he returned, Mr. Holloway's smile was mean. "Well? We're waiting for your concert, Mr. Carter." Devin looked down at the violin in his hands. Then, to everyone's surprise, he carefully positioned it under his chin, just as he'd seen in videos. His grandfather had loved classical music, and though they couldn't afford lessons, Devin had spent many hours watching performances online. "May I?" he asked, pointing to the school tablet on the teacher's desk. Mr. Holloway, confused by the boy's calmness, nodded. Devin quickly searched for something, then positioned the tablet where he could see it. He took a deep breath, raised the bow, and began to play. The first notes were unsure, clearly those of a beginner following a simple guide displayed on the screen. But there was something else there, a natural sense of rhythm, an understanding of the instrument that couldn't be taught. By the time he finished the simple tune, the classroom had fallen silent. Even Mr. Holloway looked surprised. "Where did you learn to do that?" he demanded. "I didn't," Devin answered honestly. "I just watched videos of violinists. I can hear the notes in my head." Mr. Holloway's eyes narrowed. "Beginner's luck," he muttered, taking the violin back. "Return to your seat." But Ms. Rivera had seen something in those few minutes that the older teacher had missed, or chosen to ignore. She made a note on her personal tablet. Potential, perfect. Pitch, natural talent. Follow-up. What none of them realized was that the embassy spacecraft Devin had been watching carried more than just people. It transported something that would soon connect with Devin's newfound musical interest in ways no one could imagine. 2 days later, Devin was eating lunch alone when Ms. Rivera sat down across from him. "That was impressive yesterday, in music class," she said. Devin shrugged. Mr. Holloway didn't think so. "Mr. Holloway has been teaching the same way for 30 years, Ms. Rivera said with a small smile. "He doesn't always recognize talent when it doesn't fit his expectations." "Have you ever played any instruments before?" "No," Devin answered. "My mom works 2 jobs. We don't have money for things like music lessons." Ms. Rivera nodded thoughtfully. "Would you like to learn? Really learn, I mean?" Devin looked up from his sandwich. "What do you mean?" "I'm starting an after-school music program," she explained. "For students who might not otherwise have the chance to learn. It would be free. The school has instruments you could use." "Why?" Devin asked suspiciously. Adults rarely offered things without wanting something in return. "Because music changed my life when I was your age," Ms. Rivera said simply. "And I think it might change yours too." Before Devin could answer, a commotion erupted at the cafeteria entrance. A group of visitors was being led through by Principal Griffith, mostly humans in business clothes. but among them was a tall figure whose skin had a faint bluish tint and whose eyes were larger than a human's. "That's one of the Kildari," whispered a girl at the next table. "From the embassy." As the group passed their table, the alien visitor suddenly stopped, head tilting as if listening to something. Its large eyes scanned the room before settling on Devon. For a brief moment, they stared at each other. Then Principal Griffith said something and the group moved on. "That was weird," Devon said, watching them leave. "Yes, it was." Ms. Rivera agreed, looking thoughtful. "So about the music program?" Devon thought about his mother, who would be proud of him doing something constructive after school. He thought about Mr. Holloway's smug face when he'd expected Devon to fail, and he thought about how it had felt to hold that violin, like finding something he didn't know he'd been missing. "Okay," he said, "I'll try it." Ms. Rivera smiled. "Great, we start tomorrow. Room 103 right after last period." What Devon didn't notice as she walked away was how quickly she took out her phone and dialed a number. "Dr. Bennett, it's Carol Rivera. From Westlake. About that music program you mentioned. I think I found our first student." The next day, Devon arrived at room 103 to find it empty except for Ms. Rivera and a violin case on one of the desks. "Am I the only one coming?" he asked, looking around. "For today," Ms. Rivera said. "I wanted to see where your abilities are before bringing in other students." She opened the case and handed him the violin. It was nicer than the one from class, with a warm honey-colored finish. "This is too expensive," Devon protested. "What if I break it?" "You won't," Ms. Rivera said confidently. "Now let's see what you can do without Mr. Holloway hovering over you." For the next hour, Ms. Rivera guided him through basic techniques. She was surprised at how quickly he picked things up, how his fingers seemed to find the right positions, without much instruction. "Devon, do notes have colors to you?" she asked suddenly. He looked startled. "How did you know?" "It's called synesthesia," she explained. "Some people's brains connect senses in unusual ways. For you, sounds might have colors or shapes." "I thought everyone saw them," Devon admitted. "The notes make patterns in my head. It helps me remember where my fingers should go." Miss Rivera made another note on her tablet. When she looked up, she found Devon staring out the window. The embassy was visible in the distance, its strange architecture gleaming in the afternoon sun. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Devon turned back to her, violin still in hand. "That alien, the one who looked at me yesterday. I had a weird dream about it last night. It was playing music, but not like anything I've ever heard. And in the dream, I understood it." Ms. Rivera's expression gave nothing away, but her fingers tightened slightly on her tablet. "Dreams can be strange," she said lightly. "Why don't we try one more piece before you go home?" As Devon raised the violin again, neither of them noticed the small device hidden in the corner of the room, its light blinking as it measured sound waves that human technology wasn't designed to detect. 3 weeks had passed since Devon first picked up a violin in Ms. Rivera's after-school music program. He practiced every day, sometimes staying late into the evening. His progress was remarkable. Notes that had once been difficult now flowed easily from his fingers. Today, Devon sat in the practice room playing a piece that would have challenged students with years of training. Ms. Rivera watched, her expression a mix of wonder and curiosity. "That's enough for today," she said when he finished. "You've made amazing progress, Devon." "It's getting easier," he said, carefully placing the violin back in its case. "The colors help me remember where my fingers should go." Before Ms. Rivera could respond, there was a knock at the door. Principal Griffith entered, followed by a woman Devon had never seen before and the blue-skinned alien who had stared at him in the cafeteria weeks ago. "Ms. Rivera," Principal Griffith said, "sorry to interrupt, but our guests insisted on hearing your student play." The woman stepped forward, hand extended. "I'm Dr. Olivia Bennett from the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Program. This is Ambassador Nirtal of the Kildari Embassy." Ms. Rivera shook her hand, looking surprised. "How did you know about Devon?" "We detected unusual acoustic patterns coming from this school," Dr. Bennett explained. "Patterns that shouldn't be possible with Earth instruments." The alien, Ambassador Nirtal, moved closer to Devon. studying him with large, curious eyes. "Young human," he said, his voice strangely musical. "Would you play for us?" Devin looked at Ms. Rivera, who nodded encouragingly. "Okay," he said, reopening the violin case. As Devin began to play, Ambassador Nayartal's eyes widened. The alien turned to Dr. Bennett and said something in a language Devin didn't understand. She nodded excitedly in response. When Devin finished, the room was silent for a long moment. "Extraordinary," Ambassador Nayartal finally said. "The harmonic resonance patterns you create match mathematical sequences my people use in our quantum communications. Sequences we didn't think humans could hear, let alone reproduce." Devin lowered the violin. "I don't understand." Dr. Bennett knelt beside him. "Devin, the music you're playing contains mathematical patterns that are like a universal language. The Kildari use these patterns to communicate across great distances. Somehow you're naturally creating these patterns without any training." "Is that why I see colors when I play?" Devin asked. "Yes," the ambassador replied. "What you call synesthesia might be your brain's way of processing these complex mathematical patterns. You are experiencing what my people call the universal symphony, the mathematical foundation of all matter and energy expressed through sound." Principal Griffith looked confused. "Are you saying this boy is communicating with aliens through violin music?" "Not exactly," Dr. Bennett said. "But he is creating sound patterns that have significant meaning to the Kildari and potentially other species. This could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies communication." The ambassador turned to Devin again. "Would you be interested in learning how to develop this ability? To play music that could be understood by beings across the galaxy?" Devin thought about his mother, who worked long hours to give him a better life. He thought about Mr. Holloway, who had tried to humiliate him. And he thought about how playing the violin made him feel connected to something larger than himself. "Yes," he said. "I want to learn." 2 days later, Devin and his mother sat in Principal Griffith's office with Dr. Bennett and Ambassador Nayartal. Ms. Rivera stood beside them. "Mrs. Carter," Dr. Bennett explained, "we're proposing a special educational opportunity for Devin. He would continue his regular classes, but also receive specialized music training through our program. All expenses would be covered, including a stipend for your family to compensate for any inconvenience." Devin's mother looked overwhelmed. "Why my son? He's only been playing violin for a few weeks." "Your son has a rare gift," Ambassador Nayartal said gently. "He can naturally create and understand sound patterns that most humans cannot even hear. This ability could help bridge the gap between our species." "And if I say no?" she asked. "Then we respect your decision," Dr. Bennett assured her. "This is completely voluntary." Mrs. Carter looked at Devin. "Is this what you want, son?" Devin nodded. "Yes, Mom. When I play, it's like I can see how everything fits together. I want to learn more." She smiled, though her eyes were worried. "Then I won't stand in your way." The next day, Devin entered his regular music class for the first time since beginning Ms. Rivera's after-school program. Mr. Holloway was writing on the board when Devin took his seat. "Ah, Mr. Carter," the teacher said, turning around. "I heard about your special arrangement. Perhaps you'd like to show the class what you've learned." His tone was skeptical, and Devin knew the teacher expected him to fail. Some things never changed. "Yes, sir," Devin said, walking to the front of the room. He took the classroom violin and positioned it under his chin. This time he didn't need a tablet to guide him. He closed his eyes, seeing the colorful patterns in his mind, and began to play. The music that filled the room was unlike anything the students had heard before. Complex harmonies built upon each other in ways that shouldn't have been possible for a beginner. As Devin played, the patterns in his mind grew more vivid, guiding his fingers to create sounds that seemed to resonate with the very air around them. When he finished, the classroom was absolutely silent. Mr. Holloway stared at him, his face pale. "How did you—" the teacher started, then stopped. "Who taught you to play like that?" "I'm still learning, sir," Devin said honestly. After class, Ms. Rivera found Devin in the hallway. Mr. Holloway left the teacher's lounge in quite a state. she said with a small smile. I think you've given him something to think about. Devon shrugged. I just played what I could see in my head. Well, you've certainly made an impression. Your first session at the embassy is tomorrow after school. Ambassador Nirtal has arranged for his daughter to join your lessons. She's been studying earth music. They have music too? Devon asked. All intelligent species seem to develop some form of music, Ms. Rivera explained. But the Kildari understand it differently than we do. To them, music is mathematics, physics, and emotion all rolled into one, and somehow you naturally understand their approach. That evening, Devon sat in his bedroom holding the new violin the ambassador had given him. It looked almost like a regular violin, but there were subtle differences in its design. When he played a note, it produced not only the expected sound but also faint harmonics that seemed to shimmer in the air. In his mind, the colors were brighter than ever, forming patterns that reminded him of the stars. He played until his mother called him for dinner, exploring the new instrument's capabilities. Each note seemed to connect him to something vast and ancient, a language written in sound that had existed long before humans walked the earth. What Devon didn't know was that across the city, in the Kildari embassy, sophisticated equipment was recording and analyzing every note he played. And in a ship orbiting high above Earth, representatives from other alien species were listening with growing interest to the human boy who could speak the universal symphony. Summer turned to fall, and fall to winter. For 6 months, Devon split his time between regular school and special training sessions with the Kildari. 3 days a week, after finishing his normal classes, he would be driven to the embassy in a sleek black car that always arrived exactly on time. Today, Devon sat in a specially built room at the embassy. The walls were lined with sound-absorbing material, and strange crystal devices hung from the ceiling. He held his modified violin, adjusting the strings as Ambassador Nirtal had taught him. Your progress is remarkable, the ambassador said, watching Devon's careful movements. In half a year, you have mastered concepts that take young Kildari a decade to understand. Devon smiled shyly. It's easier when I can see the patterns. They make more sense every day. The door opened, and Elvira entered. The ambassador's daughter was taller than Devon, with the same blue-tinted skin as her father, but her features were softer, more delicate. She carried an instrument that looked like a cross between a cello and a glass bowl. Are you ready for today's lesson? She asked in perfect English. Part of their arrangement was a cultural exchange. Devon taught her about human music while she helped him understand Kildari harmonics. I think so, Devon replied. I've been practicing that sequence. You showed me last time. Elvira set up her instrument across from him. Show me. Devon raised his violin and began to play. The notes flowed from his fingers, creating complex patterns that seemed to hang in the air. As he played, the crystal devices above them began to glow softly, responding to the sound. Elvira watched with large, expressive eyes. When Devon finished, she nodded approvingly. The mathematical precision is perfect, she said. But you are still playing like a human, thinking of each note separately, instead of feeling the complete pattern. I'm not sure I understand. Devon admitted. Elvira lifted her instrument. Listen. She began to play a melody that seemed impossibly complex. The sounds didn't just come from her instrument. They seemed to fill the entire room, vibrating at frequencies that made Devon's skin tingle. In his mind, the colors and patterns exploded into three-dimensional shapes that shifted and flowed with each note. When she finished, Devon sat in stunned silence. I don't have words for it, he finally said. That was a simple greeting, in our musical language, Elvira explained. It contains not just sound, but mathematical equations describing the relationship between our two star systems. How can music contain all that information? Devon asked. Ambassador Nirtal, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. The Universal Symphony isn't just music as humans understand it. It's a method of encoding information into harmonic patterns that resonate with the quantum structure of reality itself. Seeing Devon's confused expression, he tried again. Think of it this way. Ordinary music expresses emotion. The universal symphony expresses everything. Physics, mathematics, emotion, history, all at once. Dr. Bennett entered the room carrying several tablets. Devin, the recordings from your last session showed something fascinating. When you and Elvia played together, you created harmonic patterns neither of you had been taught. She placed one of the tablets in front of them showing complex waveforms. These patterns match ancient Kildari texts describing the theoretical foundation of interstellar travel. But we were just improvising, Devin said, surprised. Exactly, the ambassador replied excitedly. You were connecting to the universal symphony instinctively. This suggests that humans and Kildari might share some fundamental understanding of reality that transcends our biological differences. Dr. Bennett looked at Devin seriously. We need to ask you something important, Devin. The Interspecies Council is meeting next month. Representatives from 12 spacefaring civilizations will gather to discuss Earth's integration into the galactic community. Would you be willing to perform with Elvia at the opening ceremony? Devin's eyes widened. Me, but I'm still learning. That's precisely why your performance would be valuable, Ambassador Neertal said. You represent the potential for humans to understand the universal symphony. Your natural ability gives hope that our species can communicate on deeper levels than we initially thought possible. Devin thought about it. 6 months ago, he had been just another student that teachers like Mr. Holloway overlooked. Now he was being asked to represent humanity to alien civilizations. Can Ms. Rivera help me prepare? He asked. Despite all his training with the Kildari, he still valued his first teacher's guidance. Of course, Dr. Bennett agreed. And your mother will be invited to attend as well. Then yes, Devin decided. I'll do it. The next few weeks were filled with intense preparation. Devin practiced for hours each day, working with both Ms. Rivera and Elvia to create a performance that would showcase both human and Kildari musical traditions. One afternoon, as he was leaving the embassy, Devin was surprised to see Mr. Holloway waiting by the car that usually took him home. Mr. Holloway? Devin asked, confused. What are you doing here? The music teacher looked uncomfortable. Principal Griffith suggested I should see what you've been learning. The school board is interested in your progress. Would you like to come in? Devin offered, trying to be polite despite their difficult history. Mr. Holloway nodded stiffly. Inside the embassy, Devin led him to one of the practice rooms where his regular violin, the human one, was kept. This is where I started, Devin explained, before moving to the modified instruments. He picked up the violin and played a simple piece, one that Mr. Holloway had once insisted was beyond the capabilities of beginners. His fingers moved smoothly across the strings, drawing out notes of perfect clarity. Mr. Holloway watched in silence, his expression unreadable. When Devin finished, the teacher cleared his throat. Who taught you to play like that? He asked quietly. Many people, Devin answered honestly. Ms. Rivera, Ambassador Neertal, Elvia. But mostly I just listen to what the music wants to be. Mr. Holloway looked away. I owe you an apology, Mr. Carter. When I handed you that violin in class, I expected you to fail. I wanted you to fail. I know, Devin said simply. Why didn't you? The teacher asked, genuinely curious now. No one learns that quickly. Devin considered how to explain. Have you ever known something without being taught? Like your body just remembers how to swim or ride a bike? Muscle memory, Mr. Holloway nodded. It's like that, but with music. When I pick up a violin, my mind sees patterns. The patterns show me where my fingers should go. It's always been there. I just needed someone to put an instrument in my hands. Mr. Holloway was quiet for a long moment. They want me to attend this alien council meeting. As your discovering teacher, he made air quotes with his fingers. Will you come? Devin asked. Yes, Mr. Holloway said. I think I need to see this through. As the teacher left, Devin returned to his practice. In 2 weeks, he would perform for beings from across the galaxy. The thought should have terrified him, But instead he felt strangely calm. The universal symphony was already in his head. All he had to do was let it out. The day of the Interspecies Council meeting arrived. Devin stood backstage in the newly built Harmony Hall, trying to calm his racing heart. The building itself was amazing, designed by both human and alien architects, with soaring ceilings and materials that seemed to glow from within. Through a gap in the curtains, Devin could see the audience. Over 2,000 beings filled the seats. Some looked almost human, while others were so different that Devin couldn't even guess how they perceived the world. In the front row, he spotted his mother sitting next to Ms. Rivera. Mr. Holloway was there too, looking uncomfortable in a formal suit. "Are you nervous?" Elvira asked, joining him at the curtain. She wore formal Keldari clothing, flowing blue fabric with crystal accents that caught the light. "Yes," Devin admitted. "There are so many important people out there." "Important beings," Elvira corrected gently. "Remember, to most of them, humans and Keldari are equally strange." Devin smiled at that. Over the months, he and Elvira had become good friends, bonding over their shared love of music despite their different backgrounds. Ambassador Nirtal approached them, accompanied by Dr. Bennett. Both looked serious. "Devin, before you go on stage, there's something you should know," Dr. Bennett said. "The equipment detected something unusual during your rehearsals with Elvira. The harmonic patterns you created together weren't just music or mathematical concepts. What were they?" Devin asked, curious. "Star maps," the ambassador replied. "Your music contained coordinates to a star system beyond our current exploration range, a system that, according to ancient Keldari texts, might be the birthplace of the Universal Symphony." Devin looked at Elvira in surprise. "We made star maps without knowing it?" "That's not all," Dr. Bennett added. "The patterns suggested this system could support life. They match stories from several species about the origin of music in our galaxy. The implications were clear, but unspoken. Devin's natural ability might not be random. It might be connected to something much older and more significant than anyone had imagined." A soft chime indicated it was time to begin. "We'll discuss this more later," the ambassador said. "For now, play as you've been taught. Play what you feel." Devin and Elvira walked onto the stage together. The hall fell silent as the audience watched the human boy and Keldari girl take their positions. Devin caught his mother's eye and she smiled encouragingly. Devin raised his violin and began to play a simple earth melody, one that any human would recognize as beautiful but ordinary. Then Elvira joined in, her instrument producing tones that seemed to vibrate the air itself. As they played, their separate melodies began to weave together, creating something new that belonged to neither tradition. Devin closed his eyes, letting the familiar patterns fill his mind. The colors were brighter than ever, forming three-dimensional structures that seemed to contain entire worlds. Throughout the hall, translation devices fell silent. They weren't needed. Every being present experienced the music directly, not as sound but as pure understanding. In the front row, Mr. Holloway sat rigidly, his hands gripping the armrests. Then slowly his expression changed. Tears formed in his eyes as he finally heard what Devin had been trying to show him all along. Music not as a set of rules to be followed, but as a living language of the universe itself. Across the hall, specialized equipment recorded patterns of energy spreading throughout the structure. These patterns contained information that scientists would study for years to come. As the performance reached its peak, something unexpected happened. The crystal, elements in Elvira's instrument began to glow with an inner light, responding to frequencies in Devin's violin that no one had anticipated. The glow spread to the architectural elements of the hall itself, until the entire space seemed to resonate with their music. In that moment, Devin felt connected to something vast and ancient, as if he were playing notes that had been waiting for millions of years to be heard again. When they finished, the silence lasted several heartbeats before the applause began. It started with the humans, then spread to the other species, each expressing appreciation in their own way. Lights flashing, colors changing, sounds that ranged from deep rumbles to high whistles. Ambassador Nirtal stepped forward to address the audience. "What you have witnessed today is more than a performance," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. "It is proof that different species can share fundamental understandings that transcend our biological differences. This human child, with no previous musical training, naturally grasps patterns that form the basis of Keldari quantum mathematics. And together with my daughter, they have rediscovered harmonies that might lead us to the very source of what we call the Universal Symphony." He gestured to where representatives from the 12 spacefaring civilizations sat together. "I formally propose a joint mission, a vessel crewed by members of all our species guided by the coordinates revealed through this music. Let us follow these harmonies to their source." The proposal caused immediate discussion among the delegates. Dr. Bennett guided Devon and Elvia off the stage while the formal debates began. In a quiet room backstage, Devon found his mother waiting. She hugged him tightly. "I'm so proud of you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Your father would have been too." Devon hugged her back. His father had died when Devon was only 4, but he had memories of him singing old jazz songs while cooking dinner. "Mrs. Carter," Dr. Bennett said, entering the room, "we need to discuss Devon's future. The council is already voting on the ambassador's proposal. If approved, they'll begin planning a mission to the coordinates found in Devon's music." "What does that have to do with my son?" Mrs. Carter asked protectively. "The harmonics that reveal these coordinates seem to be unique to Devon and Elvia's playing," Dr. Bennett explained. "They want both of them involved in the mission planning. This would mean specialized education, training." She hesitated, then continued. "It would be a 5-year commitment leading to Devon potentially joining the mission itself when he's 18. Mrs. Carter looked stunned. "You're talking about sending my son into space? To some unknown star system?" "Not now," Dr. Bennett said quickly. "Years from now after extensive preparation, and only if both you and Devon agree." Devon looked at his mother, then at Dr. Bennett. "Would Elvia be going too?" "Yes," Dr. Bennett nodded. "Her father has already given permission." "And would I still get to play music?" Devon asked. Dr. Bennett smiled. "Devon, your music would be the whole point of the mission." Mrs. Carter took her son's hand. "This is a big decision. We need time to think about it." "Of course," Dr. Bennett agreed. "Take all the time you need. But know that what Devon did today has changed how the galaxy sees humanity. Whatever you decide, that will always be true." 5 years passed. On a bright spring morning, 18-year-old Devon Carter stood on the observation deck of the interspecies vessel Harmony. Earth hung below them, a blue and white marble against the blackness of space. In a few hours, they would leave orbit and begin their journey to the distant star system revealed in Devon's music. "Hard to believe it all started with that day in music class," Ms. Rivera said, joining him at the window. She had been appointed as the education coordinator for the human crew members, ensuring that the younger participants like Devon continued their studies during the long journey. "I think about that a lot," Devon admitted. "If Mr. Holloway hadn't tried to embarrass me, none of this would have happened." "Speaking of Mr. Holloway," Ms. Rivera said with a small smile, "he sent you a message. He wanted me to give it to you before departure." She handed Devon a small data card. On it was a simple message. "Music finds those who are meant to hear. It's safe travels, Mr. Carter." Devon smiled. Over the years, his relationship with his former teacher had slowly healed. Mr. Holloway had even helped establish a music program based on Devon's early training, identifying other students with natural abilities similar to his own. "Ensign Carter," a voice called from behind them. Captain Lorian Nguyen approached, her uniform crisp and formal. "We're ready for the final systems check in the navigation chamber." "Yes, Captain," Devon replied, tucking the message away. He followed her through the ship's corridors. The Harmony was unlike any vessel humans had built before, a blend of technologies from all 12 spacefaring civilizations, designed specifically for this mission. At its heart was the navigation chamber, where Devon would help guide their journey. Inside the chamber, Elvia was already adjusting her instrument. She had grown taller over the years, her blue skin darkening to a deeper shade as she reached Keldari adulthood. Her father, Ambassador Nir Tal, stood nearby, talking with other crew members. "Are you ready?" Elvira asked as Devon approached. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied, taking his position at the specially designed station. It featured both standard navigation controls and his modified violin, the same instrument he had used for years, now integrated with technology from 7 different worlds. Ambassador Nir Tal moved to address the gathered crew. 5 years ago, a human teacher meant to humiliate a student by forcing him to play an unfamiliar instrument. That moment led to the discovery of harmonic patterns that may guide us to the birthplace of what we call the Universal Symphony. He turned to where Mr. Holloway's name was listed on a plaque of key contributors. "Even discord," he added with pointed emphasis, "has its place in the greater harmony." Devon smiled at that. The ambassador had a gift for diplomatic statements that carried multiple meanings. Captain Nguyen stepped forward. "We have received final clearance from Earth Command. The Harmony will depart in 30 minutes. All crew members, please report to your stations for the jump preparation." As the others filed out, Devon's mother entered the chamber. For a moment, they stood looking at each other. Then she pulled him into a tight hug. "I am so proud of you," she whispered. "So proud." "I'll be back before you know it," Devon promised. 18 months isn't that long." She stepped back, wiping away tears. "Your father always said you were meant for something special." He was right. After a final goodbye, she left to join the other family members who would return to Earth before departure. Devon turned to his station, running through the pre-jump checklist with practiced ease. The navigation theory they would use was revolutionary, employing precisely calculated musical harmonies to create energy fields that could fold space-time in ways conventional engines could not. Devon and Elvira would work together, their music guiding the ship as surely as any computer. Navigation. "Systems are online," Devon reported. "Harmonic generators at full capacity." "All sections report ready," the first officer confirmed. Captain Nguyen nodded. "Begin departure sequence." As the massive engines hummed to life, Devon raised his violin. The familiar weight of it in his hands brought back memories of that first day in Mr. Holloway's class. How strange and intimidating the instrument had seemed then. Now it was an extension of himself, a tool that would guide them across unimaginable distances. Elvira began first, her instrument creating baseline frequencies that the ship's systems amplified. Devon joined in, his violin adding human tones that intertwined with the Keldari harmonies. Together they played the complex melody they had spent years perfecting, a musical equation that described their destination in the language of pure mathematics. On the main bridge, officers watched in amazement as the navigation displays responded to the music. Energy fields formed around the ship, bending spacetime according to the harmonic patterns. "Field integrity at 100%, the science officer reported. "Destination coordinates locked." Captain Nguyen gave the final command. "Execute jump." Devon drew his bow across the strings one last time, completing the musical sequence. The stars outside the viewports began to stretch and blur. A sensation like gentle pressure pushed against everyone on board as space itself folded around them. Then, with a flash of light that wasn't quite light, they were gone. Earth vanishing behind them as the harmony leaped toward a star no human had ever visited. In the navigation chamber, Devon lowered his violin. "Jump successful," he reported. "We're on course." Elvira looked at him with the Keldari equivalent of a smile. "And now, our real journey begins." Over the next several hours, crew members settled into the rhythm of interstellar travel. The ship's artificial day cycle began to align with their biological needs as humans. Keldari and other species found their places in this new community. That evening, Devon stood alone in the ship's observation lounge, watching unfamiliar stars slide past. The violin in his hands was silent now, but he could still feel the music in his mind, colorful patterns linking him to something ancient and powerful. A young engineer paused in the doorway. "Is it true what they say?" she asked. "That you learned to play in just one day?" Devin smiled. "Not exactly. I played a simple melody on my first try, but it took years of practice to get here." "Still," she said, "it's amazing. One moment in a classroom changed everything." "Not the classroom," Devin corrected gently. "The music was always there, waiting. I just needed someone to put a violin in my hands." As the engineer left, Devin turned back to the stars. Somewhere ahead lay answers to questions humans had asked. Since they first looked up at the night sky, are we alone? Where did we come from? What connects us to the universe? He raised his violin one more time and began to play, not for navigation now, but for the simple joy of it. The notes floated through the ship, a human melody traveling farther from Earth than any music had gone before. And somewhere in the distant stars, something ancient stirred, awakening to the sound of a harmony it had been waiting eons to hear again.